Hello. Welcome to Productions MJC.
Oh, yeah, I'm back. Yep, I'm back doing more about Poster 7 First Amendment Auditor with the Post Office. Even this Reddit thread from 4 years ago recognizes Poster 7 doesn't say what you think it says. Now, here is the CFR wording, and here's what Poster 7 looks like. And the problem is, First Amendment auditors, you don't want the postal workers to know what Poster 7 says. You really want them to be completely ignorant of what Poster 7 has to say, or else you're going to be outside all the time, forever and from now on. If the postal workers knew what that said, you mock them for not knowing. But if you knew what it said, you wouldn't tell them to read it. It says Code of Federal Regulations, Conduct on Postal Property, okay? Poster 7 basically says the same thing. It's just arranged in a different way, and it's got really cute colors and all that crap, okay? But you don't want them to know what it says, because what it says is inspection. Purses, briefcases, other containers brought onto, while on, or being removed from the property are subject to inspection. So if a postal worker walks outside as you're leaving and says, nope, hold on, dump out that briefcase, that backpack, I want to see what you got. You got to do it. You gave up your First Amendment right there. Fourth Amendment, pardon me. You gave up your Fourth Amendment right the second you stomped onto that federal postal property. It's right there in the CFR. It's 39 CFR 232.1, paragraph B. Okay? And you always quote this vehicle one. Nope, it's separate from that. Yeah, you don't want postal workers. My advice to First Amendment auditors, go the way Jason Gutterman of Amagansett Press went. Stay away from post offices. Just stay out of them. Because technically you're not allowed in the building. And you say, oh, but there's this paragraph, which, no. And I know I went over this a little bit, but here it is. It's photographs there's disturbances, conformity with signs and directives. So when you say, well, you don't have an official signage from the Department of Homeland Security, doesn't matter, because the postal workers, the clerk working the counter can give you a directive. And you're on federal property. You have to obey it. Yeah, isn't that cool? And here's their enforcement. They have the right. Here's the enforcement section. All of this can be enforced. You really don't want them to know what Poster 7 says, because they have the right to enforce their rules and their directives. If they tell you, get out of the service counter area, no filming, it doesn't have to be written on a sign. It's a directive. It's right there. Let's look at it better here. Their conformity with signs, right? Conformity with signs. All persons in or on the property shall comply with official signs of a prohibitory and directory nature and with the directions of the security force or other authorized individuals. Every single clerk is an authorized individual, and if they tell you to get off the property, you got to leave. You can't even stay outside. You got to go. Yeah, you don't want them to know what Poster 7 says. I just got off the phone with my local postmaster, and I went over this, and I said, you people don't even know the authority you have. And they've had to deal with a couple of First Amendment auditors, and they said, I wish I would have known this. I said, yeah, sit everybody down, get them a copy of Poster 7, have them go over it and read it, and know exactly what it says. Because when it says photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, it doesn't say anything about the service counter area, and it doesn't say anything about entertainment purposes. It says news. And we all know that these First Amendment auditors don't sell their pieces to the local newspaper, the local radio station. They don't sell their information to a news organization. They sell it to entertainment platforms like TikTok. And I know I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm telling you right there, photographs for news purposes. You tell me where that says service counter area. It says lobbies and foyers. But the service counter area is different because it's actually got a lockable door and a wall, and it is a restricted area even if the door's open. Yeah, it is. There is restricted access. And why right up here where it says conformity with signs and directions. Yeah. They are authorized people. The service counter people, the clerks can tell you get the crap out, or you're in violation of federal law. It's 5 years or $20,000. So you want to try that? Amagansett Press doesn't. He stays away from post offices. He doesn't even go in them anymore. I wrote to him several times and he told me I was crazy. And then the feds wrote to him and he's like, oh, crap. It was pretty funny. But I just got off the phone with my local. I had an actual official complaint against Mineola, Florida, because Liberty Troll, when he went in there, he stomped all over them. They had a sign that said limiting. This isn't the one, it's a different one. But Liberty Troll there, they had a sign right on that wall. See that separation? That's a separation of the service counter area from the lobby. On the other side of that wall is the lobby. This is a service counter area. First Amendment auditors have absolutely no business in there. They can't legally be in there. And even if they are in there, if the person behind the counter says get out, it's a directive. And they have the right under Poster 7 and the USC code to kick them out. That's one thing, they mock these people for not knowing Poster 7. You're lucky they don't. You are darn lucky they don't. So, it was pretty cool. I told the postmaster, you guys got more authority under this than you even know. Because once people do, it's called, you give your permission to have your Fourth Amendment rescinded on the federal property of the post office specifically, because that's what this code goes for. It's implied consent. Learn that word, implied consent. If you tell these people to read Poster 7, that means you've read Poster 7, and so you have given implied consent to have your purses, briefcases, and other containers searched. You have also, because you've read this, you've told people to read it, so obviously you've read it. So if you cause a disturbance, you can be told to leave. You can be told to leave for any reason. They don't have to have a reason. You don't have to break the law to be trespassed from the post office property. If the person behind the counter doesn't want you to operate your camera on the property and they give you a directive to leave, you have to leave because it's implied consent. You've read this. You know they have the authority to do that. Local postmasters, they can make an agreement with the police. The police walk on the property and they can say, handcuff them. You're done. You're done. And then you're charged with a federal crime under that USC code or that USC code. Yeah, a federal crime, little buddies. So I hope this goes, I really drilled it down with the postmaster. Read Poster 7 in its entirety. Go out and read the CFR that it's basically the exact same wording, but know which paragraphs to quote. And when somebody goes, well, have you read Poster 7? Say, yes, I have. And it's, you can see right here, conformity with signs and directives. And I am directing you to get the crap out of here. Have a good day. And you're done. You're done. And if you don't, I'll have to enforce it under 18 USC 306 or whatever the heck that is. Or let's look at it on the CFR. 3061. Okay. When they say, have you read Poster 7? Yeah, you have. Get them to admit they have read Poster 7. Postal workers. When they say, yeah, I've read Poster 7, say, oh, then you know I have enforcement authority to tell you to abide by my directives. And my directive is get out of here. Boom, you're gone. You're done. You are gone. You can sit out on the property until you can't come inside because it says lobbies for news. You're not news, you're entertainment. You can't even be in the building anyway. Outside all day long as you're not causing a disturbance, which is listed under here. Is soliciting engineer, causing disturbances. If a disturbance happens, then, as they say in Russia, Tovsky Shitsky, you're done. You give implied consent by knowing what Poster 7 says. Now, most First Amendment auditors read that paragraph I in the CFR or the paragraph on the poster, and they say, this applies to me. No, it doesn't. It applies to news and your entertainment. You have no right to be in the building. And if you're given a directive to get off the property by any postal worker whatsoever, because they have authority under the same Poster 7 you're squealing about, get out of there and leave us alone. I used to agree with what some people were saying, but right off the bat, I told Gutterman when I first saw these 8 years ago, I'm like, buddy, that doesn't apply to the general public. That only applies to news organizations and your entertainment. And he told me I was full of crap. He doesn't do post offices anymore at all. Yeah, so who was right? You're a hopeful pessimist. I was hopeful that he would pay attention to what I said. I was pessimistic that he would because he's a cocky sucker. And sure enough, it took the feds to tell him, guess what? Because he knows. He knows now that if they just say, nope, get out of here, get off the property, he has to leave or else he can be arrested under these federal codes and he can be charged with a federal crime. I know I went on and on and on, but I'm trying to drill it into your head. Postal workers, are you watching this? I hope so. You have so much power and authority you don't even know. The Fourth Amendment doesn't exist on postal property because you, by using the services, by going onto the property, you give implied consent that you waive your Fourth Amendment rights. Right there. You waive your First Amendment rights because it says if you're given a directive, you got to leave. And if they say, nope, you can't record here, you can't talk here, you can't be here, you have to leave. It's implied consent under Poster 7, 39 CFR 232. So next time a postal worker says turn that camera off, or if they say get out of here, then comply with the law. I hope that my postmaster is going to push this. I told him, when you close out the complaint, it was a complaint against the Mineola Postal Service for not doing more with Liberty Troll. But they wanted to talk to me, so they had my local postmaster talk to me. And we talked for half an hour. I've only been on this for a little, like 14 minutes. But I did double that. And drilled it down and went over the exact paragraphs, and they were surprised. They're like, holy crap. And I'm like, yeah, when you close this off, tell the postmaster of the United States, make everybody read this, and then make everybody understand that they have so much power, they can kick these people out of there in a heartbeat. So I think we might be done seeing these First Amendment audits of post offices.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day. This has been Productions MJC.